Good afternoon, ma'am. Today I am going to present about my lesson plan on self-directed learning. In that first I want to discuss about the introduction. Technology serves as an enabling tool for meeting the needs of the self-directed learners. Self-directed learners use various forms of knowledge networks, and these have proven to raise both group and the individual performances. Self-directed learning is not the synonymous with the isolation. Self-directed learning should lead to the interdependence among the students working with and help each other, and it should be perceived in a vacuum, and it does not necessitate the isolation from the ideas and the others. It has been proven that connected networks of the students are generally more productive than the students working alone. It is obvious that a number of specific services of self-directed learners need to be provided, and among this is the provision of acquisition and development, production, storage, and distribution of the course of the materials. Online technologies play an important role in supporting this. Providing course materials online for the purpose of self-directed learning will provide a whole gamut of new challenge. To effectively use it for this purpose, educators will need to enhance their instructional skills and become the managers of the technology. A high weight age has to be given to the production and design for the phase of the course material. This is about the introduction. Next, coming to the definition. What is meant by the self-directed learning? Self-directed learning as a process in which the individual take the initiative with or without the help of the others. In self-directed learning, only the individual may involve and learns whatever he or she wants. In diagnosing their own learning needs, formulating the goals, identifying the human and material resources for learning, choosing and implementing the appropriate learning strategies, and evaluating the learning outcomes. In order to have a good outcome, the self-directed learning will an important role for making the learning process, choosing and implementing the appropriate learning strategies. This is according to the Malcolm novels in 1975. Self-directed learning is a process in which the learner initiating the learning skills, making the decisions about what and how to learn self in order to achieve a particular task. It is nothing but a process in which the learner will initiate the learning skills, making certain decisions and about and what to and how to learn self in order to achieve a particular task. This is by Nima Bhaskar. Next, coming to the what are the purposes of the self-directed learning? First one is to plan and participate in one's own learning activities. The self-directed learning will plan and participate in one's own learning activities in order to develop the capacity of learning and thinking of the learner. The whatever the developing capacity of learning depends upon the individual, make the thinking of the learner more effective by the self-directed learning. To develop the sense of independence by enhancing the emancipatory learning. In order to develop the independence of learning, it enhances the emancipatory learning. Yeah, to develop the problem solving approaches. In order to solve a problem, problem to a question, self-directed learning makes an easable and very feasible for an individual. To develop the time management skills. For maintaining a self-directed learning, it will manages the time and maintain the skills how to manage the time by the self-directed learning. To develop the decision making skills, this is about the purposes of self-directed learning. Next, coming to the process of self-directed learning. What is the process and how the self-directed learning should be there? The learning independently can be the challenging even for the brightest and most motivated students. The self-directed learning involves four steps. They are: assess the readiness to learn, set the learning goals, engage in the learning process, and evaluate the learning. In that four steps, the first step is assess the readiness to learn. In order to make it ready with the material or ready with the knowledge or anything, we have to assess when we are going to learn one thing, that is assess. Next, we have to set a goal for the learning process, and we have to engage whatever we have set it the goal for learning process. We have to engage in the learning process. After the engaging, we have to know what is the outcome. Evaluate the learning process. In this way, the process of self-directed learning should be. No. In that four steps are there. First step is assess the readiness to learn, set the learning goals, engage in the learning process, and evaluate the learning. In that first step is assess the readiness to learn. In this, the students need various skills and attitudes toward the learning for the successful independent study. Not only the students, we will in this mainly I focus on students, because students needs and various skills and attitudes toward the learning for an successful independent study. This step involves the students conducting the self-evaluation and their current situation, study habits, family situation, and support network both at school and at home, and also the involves evaluating the past experiences with the independent learning. In next one is set the learning goals. After the assessing, we have to set the goals: how to learn, what to learn, and how much we have to learn. Communication of learning goals between the student and the advising instructor is a very critical part. We have to develop a set of questions for the students to consider as they map out their learning goals. Our unit planning decision guide also critical in developing a clear understanding of learning goals between the students and the instructors or learning contracts. This is about the setting of learning goals. Next, coming to the what are the learning contract generally includes. What are the learning contracts generally include? In that one, first, goals for the unit study. We have to set a goal for an unit study. Make an goal. I want to learn this one. I want to learn the in this unit. I want to learn from the first to last. Like that, we have to set a goal. Structure and sequence of activities. Timeline for the completion of activities. After the setting of the goal, a structure and sequence. We have to frame a structure, how to learn, what to learn, and how much amount have to learn, and make a sequence: first, second, third. Like we have to make a sequence of activities. After setting the goal, structure and sequence of activities, and also we have to set a time also. In this time, I want to complete this structure and sequence of activities. Like that, we have to set a time. And details about the resources material for each goal. We have to gather all the details or all the information from the resource material. These details about the grading procedures. Regarding the grading procedures and the resource material, we have to gather all the information. Next one, coming to the feedback and evaluation. Everything we have to set and feedback and evaluation, then only the good outcome will be we will achieve. meeting the plan with advising instructor, and agreement of unit policies such as a policy on late assignments. We have to set an agreement for making the not having any late assignments. Next, coming to the step 3, engage in the learning process. Students need to understand themselves as the learners in order to understand their needs. As self-directed learning, students referring the student to our resources on the learning preferences may be useful, helpful, and for the students. This is an engaging the learning process. A deep approach for the studying involves in the self-directed learning. This approach is about understanding the ideas of yourself, applying the knowledge in new situations, and using the novel examples to explain the concept and learning more than the required for the unit completion. A surface approach involves the reproduction coping with the unit requirement, learning only what is required to complete a unit in good standing, and tending to regurgitate the example and explanations used in readings. Next one is a strategic approach involves the organization achieving the highest possible grades, learning what is required to pass exams, memorizing the facts, and spending the time practicing from the past exams. Next, fourth step is evaluate the learning process. For the students to be successful in self-directed learning, they must be able to engage in self-reflection and self-evaluation of their learning goals and progress in a unit study. To support this self-evaluation process, they should regularly consult with the advising instructor, seek their feedback, and engage in the reflection of their achievements, which involves the asking, how do I know I have learned? Am I flexible in adapting and applying the knowledge? When do I know I have learned enough? These are all about the steps of learning process, self-directed learning process. Next, coming to the self-directed learning model. In that, we have to set the self motivation, self management, self modification, and self monitoring. In self motivation, to enter the learning task, take responsibility, plan own learning outcomes and activities, and to control one's in self-management, to control one's behavior and resources, to think independently, solve problems, and make the decisions. In self-modification, we have to modify and change the behavior based upon the self-monitoring and on the feedback receiving from the others. In self-monitoring, to concisely monitor one's own thinking and actions through the self-reflection or evaluation. Skills that are needed to an effective and self-directed learning or goal setting skills, processing skills, decision making skills, self-awareness, content competence, other cognitive skills like sensory, memory, elaboration, etc. Next, coming to the what are the advantages of self-directed learning? Self-directed learning allows the learner to be more effective learners and social beings. It enhances the ability to think and learn, to promote emancipatory learning process. Self-directed learning are curious and willing to try new things. They can view problems as challenges, desire changes, and enjoys the learning. Self-directed learning Directed learners are motivated and persistent, independent, self-disciplined, self-confident, and goal-oriented. Self-directed learners demonstrate a greater awareness of their responsibility in making the learning meaningful and monitoring themselves. It encourages the students to develop their own rules and leadership patterns. These are all about the advantages. Next, coming to the disadvantages. What are the disadvantages of the self-directed learning process? Research have proved that some adults are unable to engage in the self-directed learning because they lack independence, confidence, or resources. Possible for frequent error, and sometimes it misguides the students how to learn. It needs to be combined with other learning methods for content to be fully learned. Self-directed learning is quite time consuming and it lacks team spirits. This is about the disadvantages. Next, coming to the conclusion, it is a process in which the individuals take the initiative with or without the help of the others in order to diagnose their learning goals, identify the resources for learning, select and implement their learning strategies, and evaluate the learning outcomes. And its purposes are to boost up the critical thinking and learning and learn permanently. It has the more advantages than the disadvantages. As everything is controversial, it is deep and permanent method of learning. This is about the self-directed learning. Thank you, ma'am.